call this meeting to order at 6 p.m. And I'm Erica Crea, and would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated.
And on behalf of the City Council, I want to thank you for opening our meeting today.
Thank you so much.
I want to get a picture.
Oh. It's okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Let's get prayed in. I'll do the prayer. Alrighty. Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you, Lord God, for allowing us to see this day and allowing us to be here at the meeting. We know that there's so many who were not able to see today or to see the finish of today, Lord God. Lord, let us always be mindful of you as we conduct the business of the city, Lord God. Let us have no agenda except for your agenda. Lord, bless those that are here today and bless those that sit upon the council. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Roll call.
Councilmember Mintz,
Here.
Councilmember Klink,
Here.
Councilmember Bilderain will be late, Mayor Pro Tem Wright,
Here.
and Mayor Ogilvy.
Here. Okay. And no closed session announcements. Any changes to the agenda?
Just moving the order of the presentations.
Okay, yes, we're going to move the order of the presentations. We're going to switch the
Proclamation.
proclamation first.
Uh-huh.
Okay, we're going to do the proclamation. Should I come down?
Yeah.
Don't be nervous. It's not my biting season, I promise. City of 29 Palms Proclamation, Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Whereas during Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, our nation recognizes the innumerable contributions, vibrant cultures, and rich heritage of Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders, AA and NHPI. As some of the fastest growing racial and ethnic groups in the nation, AA and NHPI communities represent a multitude of ethnicities, languages, and experiences that enrich America and strengthen our union. Whereas AA and NHPIs have long played an essential role in writing the American story, from serving our country in uniform, advocating for civil rights, starting new businesses, and winning Olympic medals. The contribution of AA and NHPI community touches the lives of Americans every day. AA and NHPI serve with distinction in the highest level of federal, state, and local government. Whereas we celebrate AA and NHPI communities, we must also redouble our commitment to combating the surge of anti-Asian hate crimes. Many other incidents of anti-Asian bias, xenophobia, harassment that has surfaced throughout the COVID-19 pandemic were not even reported. We cannot allow these horrific acts to continue to threaten the safety of AA and NHPI Americans, especially women, girls, and the elderly. These acts are wrong. They are un-American, and they must stop. As we work to ensure that hatred has no safe harbor in America's future, we must confront shameful chapters of our history. And we will continue to root out racial injustices of our past and advance equality for all Americans as we move forward. Whereas this month we celebrate our fellow Americans from AA to NHPI communities and pay tribute to all who have done to help fulfill the promise of America for all. Together, let us recommit ourselves to building a country in which every American, regardless of who they are, where they come from, and what they look like, have an opportunity to thrive. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of the City of 29 Palms does hereby proclaim May 2022 as Asian American, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. We call upon all Americans to learn more about the history of Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders to observe this month with appropriate programs and activities. Mayor Carmelette Ogilvie. Alrighty. And there we're going to go to the newest employees.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. I'm very excited to introduce to you tonight the newest team members from the Parks and Recreation Department. And I'm going to have them come up individually and give you information about their background and history with 29 Palms. And we'll start with Jimmy Schragge.
Hi, my name is Jimmy Schragge. I was born and raised here in 29 Palms, which is what introduced me to the recreation department. From the second I was old enough to participate in any type of organized sport, I was signed up playing football, basketball, soccer, baseball, which sports have always been a huge passion of mine. My first job was working at the summer day camp, which is through the rec department. I worked there for a few summers while I was in high school. While I was actually in school, I also did ball field maintenance, which was a part-time job through the rec department. Growing up heavily participating in this department not only created a sort of structure for me, but also brought amazing people into my life that are still here to this day. And that to me was one of the biggest takeaways that I got from working or going through the rec department. In my eyes, this career path is a great way to be hands-on with youth and the younger generations to come, being able to not only give back to the community but be a positive role model and mentor to kids is something that I've always wanted to do. With that being said, I'm extremely excited to have received this opportunity and to be a part of a team that's extremely dedicated and passionate day in and day out about everything that they do. Since the hire date, they've all shown awesome leadership with getting us on the same page and welcoming us with open arms, which I'm extremely thankful for. It's made the start of this journey very smooth, and I'm looking forward to a long career with the rec department.
Thank you.
Excuse me. And next we have Nokomis Cabrera.
Hi, my name is Nokomis Cabrera. I am also one of the new employees here. This has been a very full circle experience for my family and I. Before we moved here to 29 Palms, we had lived in Puerto Rico for a little while my dad was stationed in Iraq. And unfortunately, there was no sports or anything like that when we lived in Puerto Rico. So we had never even played any sports until we had moved here. We moved here in 2004, and my family instantly fell in love with the Recs department. They definitely welcomed us, and that's where I met some of my best friends. That's where my family met some of their first friends. I would bring home pretty much any sports flyer, activity, or anything like that, and luckily my parents had signed me up for pretty much anything that I wanted to participate in. I was awful at pretty much every sport I played, any activity. I wasn't very good at pretty much anything, but eventually with a lot of coaching, a lot of practice, and all the volunteer work that the recreation department showed us, I eventually turned out all right, and I had the opportunity to play basketball later on in college and pursue my education that way. So I was definitely really grateful for that, because without the recreation department, I probably wouldn't have pursued that in the long run. But being immersed into the community through sports definitely helped mold me into the woman that I am today, both actively and in my professional life. It's also, like I said, where my family and I met some of the people that we love the most and cherish the most still to this day. I am also extremely grateful for all the workers and volunteers that have helped me get to where I am at today, along with all the volunteers and workers who have helped us kind of get comfortable in this new employment opportunity. Now working for Park and Rec myself, I definitely hope that I can provide that same experience to some other families and some other kids as well. But yeah, I look forward to meeting everybody that I don't already know, and I just really thank you guys for the opportunity.
Okay, and we still don't have. Okay, go ahead and, Councilmember Wright.
I was just itching to give this money away. They was holding me up for the Interact Club. Cash for trash. All right, for the 29 Pounds Interact Club.
Yes.
So can you tell us where you guys cleaned up at and how well you
we
did?
cleaned up by the 29 Palms entrance for the national park. And that was probably the biggest lot that we've cleaned this year since I've been president of Interacts Club. And we did a great job. We actually cleaned up 2 lots by Circle K and then by the actual entrance. And it
All
was
right,
really
great,
fun. Yeah.
outstanding. Well, on behalf of the city and Burtech, we want to present you with these 2 checks.
Thank you so
And
much.
say thank you very much for keeping 29 clean.
Thank you so
All
much,
right.
sir.
Okay. Council comments and reports of meetings attended. We'll start with Councilmember Metz.
Thank you. We actually had no meetings outside City Hall this last 2 weeks, so it was pretty much business as usual. That's really all. Softball season's over. We lost, but it's okay. On to the next.
Next year.
Yep, we got next year. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No meetings here as well. I'd like to welcome Nokomis, right, and Jimmy to the City of 29 Palms family. We look forward to working with you and seeing all the stuff that you're going to be bringing to the City of 29 Palms and the youth of the City of 29 Palms. Great job. I'd like to remind everybody about the Memorial Day service that's going to be held on Monday at the 29 Palms Cemetery at 6 p.m. So please join us and remember those that have sacrificed their lives for us to be free that we are today. And remember, it is getting warm out there, so keep those children out of the cars, and don't forget about the fur babies as well, because they too get hot really, really fast. So remember to keep a lot of water with you if you have to travel or hike, and the start of the summer, so have a great summer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Want to say welcome to 2 new employees. I'm not going to try that name right there, so welcome. And then I did do a JPA, the Joint Powers, the recycling, and really the biggest issue or biggest thing talked about is still SB 1383 coming down. We got to figure it out. We got to do what we got to do. So it's going to be here eventually. And then I also did a MBTA rebranding via Zoom. The MBTA is rebranding, basically new logo and all kinds of good stuff. So it's really exciting, what we're going to be coming out with. very shortly here. So looking forward to that. And I want to echo what Joe said. It's getting hot, so please drink plenty of water. Drink a whole lot of water. Like we like to say, drink water till your feet slosh, and then you'll be good to go. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I never heard that before. I attended the MBTA rebranding meeting as well with Council Member Wright. I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem Wright, and we there will be some interesting things coming forth. I think that the Tri-City area will be happy with the rebranding that's going on with the buses. Also, I echo what everyone else is saying about hydrating because the weather is getting warm. My cup has gotten larger. And also every now and then drink some Gatorade or some Powerade and get your electrolytes back into your body. And I welcome the 2 new employees. I'm gonna try it. Nokomis and Jimmy. Okay, so welcome to the family. And just want to say that, you know, I'm just so happy that we get to celebrate all the different cultures in this country, and I celebrate with those who are Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islanders. And that is it.
Can I thank real quick the Interact Club as well for their great job of cleaning up the city of Twine Palms. Thanks.
Yes. All righty. Consent calendar. All matters listed on the consent calendar are to be considered routine by the city and will be enacted by one motion in the form listed. Any item may be removed from the consent calendar and considered separately by the city council. The public will be given an opportunity to comment on the consent calendar items prior to the city council action. So, is there anything that anyone wants to remove? Nope. All right. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to comment on any specific item on the consent calendar? I'll take that as a no. So then I'm looking for a motion.
I'll move the consent calendar. I'll abstain from number 7. That's the project Phoenix warrant register, and number 12. That's acceptance of work completion.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Klink,
Aye.
Councilmember Mintz,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Wright,
Aye.
Councilmember Bildurain has an abstained absence for the moment, and Mayor Ogilvy.
Aye.
Approved 401.
Okay. And we have no public hearing, discussion and potential items. Preliminary budget revisions for the general fund for fiscal year 2022 and through 2023, City Manager and Finance Director.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. The item in front of you this evening, recommendation from staff, is staff is presenting the preliminary budget revisions for the general fund for fiscal year 22-23 for the initial council review and direction, and recommending the approval of 2 transfers. Both of these transfers were already approved, but the mechanics, the money wasn't moved. So you approve these projects, but the mechanics, the money wasn't moved. The 2 are $105,000 from the general fund to the capital projects fund for the Amboy bike path. Again, council approved. And the same for the 66,422 from the general fund to the sewer fund for site planning costs for Project Phoenix. Again, both of those are approved, but the mechanics of moving the money was not. So that's why that was in front of you this evening. Just by way of some background, so a little history and the recommendation is mentioned, but so the budgeting process begins with the election year. This year we'd be in an election year. Back in, where we at, 2022? 2020 was the last election year. Right thereafter that, in theory, that is the 5 council members that are part of the next 2-year budget. So beginning in January, after the election, council comes together to establish your priorities. From that point in time, the staff then takes your priorities over the next 4 or 5 months and incorporates all those priorities into our resource allocation, our budget, to present to the council. So that was adopted last year, a two-year budget. Fiscal year, the current year that we're in, which is 21-22, which we're completing it now. The second year budget, which is where we're at now, is only revisions. So anything that are major changes, so it's not a full scrub, but it's just adjusting where needed. And that's what we're presenting this evening. So with that, I am going to turn it over to our finance director, Abigail Hernandez, to go over the details. Abigail?
Thank you, Frank. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. As Frank mentioned, we'll be presenting the preliminary budget revisions for fiscal year 22-23. The final revisions will be presented to the council on June 14 for final review and approval. And so, like Frank was saying, the original budget was presented and approved last year. So, a lot has changed since last year. So we had to make, as we have more up-to-date information, and we get closer to the new fiscal year, we have more accurate projections for this upcoming year. For instance, the city revenue revisions were updated using the latest estimates from the San Bernardino County Tax Collector for property tax. We updated our sales tax using the latest forecast from HDL. TOT is a little bit more difficult to predict, mainly due to the growth in vacation home rentals here at the city, as well as versus the potential of a recession. So the expenditures were revised using historical spending by department with input and review by department heads, as well as directions from council's strategic planning priorities. Frank, if you could go to the next slide, please. So this slide lists all of the planning priorities that council has. Vacation home rentals, it's a priority, more bike paths, updating city's infrastructures and facility, housing, wastewater, among others listed on this slide. Next slide, please. Here we have a side-by-side comparison of the adopted budget versus the revised budget. So the adopted budget, we had a surplus of $629,000 versus the revised budget, $252,000. As you can see, our total expenditures and transfers out adjustments exceeded our revenues and transfers in adjustments by $375,000. And that's mainly due to the one-time items related to ARPA funds. But if we eliminate all of those one-time items, we still have a balanced budget, and we would have a surplus of $206,000. Next slide, please. Okay, so this table depicts the top 6 revenues of the city. The largest adjustment that we did was for TOT. $253,000 adjustment, followed by franchise fees, then sales tax. I would like to highlight that staff is anticipating a $2 million in TOT revenue in fiscal year 21-22, but we didn't adjust our revised budget, by that amount, by $2 million. We actually used the same amount that we had for actuals in fiscal year 2021. So even with this $253,000 adjustment, we're still below that $2 million forecast that we're projecting for 21-22. So I just wanted to point that out. We're not being aggressive, with our TOT. We're still being conservative, even if it shows that large of an increase. Next slide, please. So this table, this pie chart shows all of our TOT revenue, which excludes our reserves and transfers in. Those are not considered operating revenues. But as you can see, property tax, sales tax, TOT, and franchise fees, they comprise about 89% of the city's total revenues. Next slide. Okay, so ARPA expenditures. So as you may recall, on March 11, 2021, the American Rescue Plan Act was signed into law by President Biden. The American Rescue Plan Act established the coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds to provide economic relief to state, local, and tribal governments as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. The city received a total allocation of about $6.2 million, which was based on the city's population from 2019 U.S. Census data. The funds would be received in 2 equal installments. The first payment was received in July of last year. The second installment is to be received 12 months after the first payment. The entire $6.2 million allocation will be used for provisions of government services. So this table kind of has the breakdown of how the expenditures for each of the first of the 2 years. $2,000 for COVID-19 supplies, $3.7 million for contracted law enforcement services, $104,000 for the Amboy bike path, and $2.4 million for the construction of the Lucky Park pool. With the city using the $3.7 million of for law enforcement services, it created a surplus. So that surplus we would be using for other projects like the wastewater sewer plant, $1 million for light poles at Lucky Park. So I'll go over those in subsequent slides. So our reserves. So in 21-22, actually no, the last budget, we projected that we would have a surplus in fiscal year 21-22 of $784,000, which council directed staff to use $700,000 for the building improvements at the animal shelter, and $84,000 for the Lucky Park pool upgrade. The other $60,000 is not really city funding. It's that $60,000 is from grant funds received in prior years from the Citizens Option for Public Safety Programs through the California Supplemental Law Enforcement Services to be spent on frontline law enforcement services. And so based on a preliminary calculation that we did, we estimate $5.2 million in unassigned reserves, which equates to about 50% of the total general fund expenditures, which is below the city's reserve policy. The city's reserve policy is 60 to 65. Having said that, the 50% is, preliminary an amount, like that's not the final. However, I feel like that, this brings the conversation for, in the future that we need to update our city policy reserve to a lower amount, because we're not tapping into the reserves, but our expenditures are growing because the city is growing. So the way the reserve is calculated is you have your unassigned reserves divided by your total expenditures. So the unassigned reserve is not changing, it's expenditures that is changing. So we need to have a conversation and decrease it, to 50 to 55%, to a more reasonable percent. Again, that's something that we can look in the future, but I think, where we are now, this starts a conversation of what do we do in the future when it comes to the reserve policy.
And just to underscore that, as mentioned, we haven't tapped into our reserves. Our reserves are still our reserves. It's just the percentage is changing with growth. So,
thank you. Next slide. Next slide, please. Okay. So these are our departmental expenditures. I just want to touch on the largest increases, which is the non-departmental, and that 161% increase is mainly to the one-time interfund transfers that I was mentioning earlier. We have $1.1 million for the Lucky Park pool, $1 million for the replacement of light poles at Lucky Park, $500,000 for the development of the city's wastewater treatment and sewer, and $250,000 for the remodel of the finance and community development offices. The next larger increase is our economic development, and that's mainly due to the addition of $100,000 for housing assistance programs. We don't have the program details yet. We'll bring them to the council for review and approval outside the budget, but we wanted to, put that, reserve that, and we'll work on the details later.
So if I could just add a little bit, as staff has heard, and I know the council has, looked at this problem and try to find out opportunities to solve this problem. So because this is a good budget, and this is a good budget, we're in a time of growth with additional revenues, especially from the TOT growth side of it. So as mentioned, we carved out of that $100,000, okay? So we assigned that money aside. We will bring it back to the council to solicit input to how we can put that money to work to kind of help those people that are looking for houses, maybe first-time home buyer programs, maybe a rental assistance, and those are just ideas, and there's probably others out there to kind of deal with this crisis before we could build some additional housing, which is still a priority that we're working on. But this may be that bridge between them.
Thank you, Frank. Okay, so the next slide, this slide just shows the expenditures by category. Our largest increases in consulting, contract and consulting. The increase is mainly due to the addition of $66,000 for outreach activities, $50,000 for outsourced labor, and $35,000 for VHR enforcement. The next larger increase is, again, transfers out, which I already discussed. Next slide. This table shows the cost for law enforcement services over the past 6 years. So I would like to highlight that in the adopted budget, we budgeted $4.6 million, but it actually, the preliminary shows that the preliminary amount shows that it would be $4.5 million. So we have a decrease of $157,000 there.
Yeah, we don't see that often.
I know, I thought it would be a lot higher than this, so I was very pleased to see that decrease. And so salaries and benefits, Frank would be discussing this in more detail.
Thank you. And good job, very good job. So, as mentioned through this process, we are in a good budget year. We're balanced budget. We have surplus stable. We're hitting the accomplishments that the council has had and have. And we're also addressing within the budget, adding some various staffing to deal with the growth that we're in. We are in a growth period. Looking at this just from a departmental perspective, parks with Project Phoenix and other, mainly Project Phoenix. We went into the budget year last year, and probably my naive approach to the workload that was going to be from Project Phoenix, we only had a half person budgeted. We opened the facility, and one thing I know we keep talking about, I see Mr. Thompson out there, and I know a lot from a conversation with our staff is we have our new house, and we got to make sure our new house looks good. So we have upgraded that part-time staff from parks to full-time. And not only will they be taking care of Project Phoenix, but they also will be taking care of the dog park as well. So that we added that. The recreational department, same thing there. We added a half-time person with Project Phoenix, but as the programs and things are developing, along with a part-time staff that is retiring, we kind of upgraded that part-time staff to a full-time staff. Within planning, Travis is going to have gray hair like me here soon, I think, because they're busy. Again, in growth time, we've got, as everybody sees within the community, there are Grocery Outlet is going. We've got O'Reilly under construction, a couple other development projects. Housing is becoming a priority that's taking a lot of time. And through succession planning, we're going to be adding another departmental person, assistant planner within that department. Same within finance. We'll be adding another half-time person there in that department. So we're growing as a city, which are good things to accomplish all the goals that the council has. You give me direction, right? And in turn, sometimes I overtax as far as staff and trying to get things done. I think this is the reaction to that, is we have to be considerate of the time that is out there. And we do have the best staff around, some of which are here this evening in the council chambers. Ms. Viescas, Mr. Clark, Mr. Thompson, Mrs. Hernandez, did I miss anybody? That are here, and many others. I know Eli is behind the stage tonight as well. And one of the staff members once told me recently, actually, he said, a former coworker told him, never work for an accountant, which I am, right? Because we're bean counters. We are very, we want to make sure, and I will always present to you a balanced budget. So we'll make sure that, from a finance perspective, that it is. Since I've been here, and this is a chart of COLAs that we've given through the years. COLAs are cost of living adjustments, okay? Early on, you could see those COLA swaps that were out there. Those were due to, as the council will recall, the city was picking up the employees' portion of PERS. And so we did some swaps there to kind of put it back on the employee side. So we did some swaps. But after that, we were consistent, even during that time frame, because the delta, by way of example, 4 to 6 is 2%. But all those time frames, we were always giving what CPI is, Consumer Price Index, whatever it was within the marketplace. And in some years it was higher, in some years, it was COLA, no more, no less. During COVID, again, as your manager on one side of it, we were in fiscal crisis. None of us really kind of knew what was in store for us. We were shutting down our economies. Our city revenues are based on the economy, and the economy is shut down, and we just didn't know where, what was next. And again, as your manager, I reacted quickly, and the staff rallied and understood the challenge that was out there. And conversely speaking, and that's the year that we're in now, is it's a good budget year. And good or bad, however you look at it, inflation is a real thing, right? Each and every one of us, council members, staff, we're paying at the pump, we're paying at the grocery store, and it's a real thing. And we need to stay competitive. Our employees are our asset. Again, as mentioned before, they are the backbone of the city that delivers your policy. And I think being consistent to the history, at least from the manager's perspective, I am recommending, what COLA is this year, which is 6.9%. But we're going to want to break it out in two ways. One way in COLA increases, which goes onto your wage. 5% goes onto your wage. 1.9% goes on an inflation adjustment. So it's still still 6.9%, but it's kind of broken out in that two-way process. Again, it's in respect to the reality of the inflationary period that we're in, recognizing our employees are our assets, and staying competitive going forward in the future. The next step to this, and potentially it could happen, is it swings back, right? So, and hopefully it does, quite frankly, and I think we all hope that it swings back, and it comes back in next year, maybe, hopefully, I guess, 1% or something to get us back to something normal. This is not normal. One thing that was brought up is one thing that we don't do, and fortunately, I shouldn't say fortunately, we do not have MOUs currently, memorandums of understanding with any employee groups. Many of which have already preset COLAs in them, so it's either they're in negotiations or it's already preset. I think, one of the things a lot of times within MOUs that are there, and maybe something that we're going to take on because these anomalies may happen in the future, is some minimums and some maximums. I think Ms. Hernandez actually brought it up today in the meeting we had with the budget committee. Is by way of example, let's say a 2% is a minimum, and maybe a 5%, and I just make this up by way of example, but 2% is a minimum, 5% is a maximum. So we stay in constraints. So there's these, weird years, at least we stay within a bubble. Right now, we don't have that. So that is what my recommendation is, for COLA for this fiscal year. The budget is not for adoption this evening. Other than those two transfers, Councilmember Mintz, that second transfer, though, is Project Phoenix related. And happy to hear council comments, direction, and again, ultimately, those two budget transfers approval or consideration.
Any questions from the council?
No, I'll make my comments after the public comment.
Okay. Open to the public. James Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Councilman. I'm James Thompson. I live at 4717 Hook Tree Road. I work for Public Works Road Department. July will be 17 years, so I've been there a minute. When I first started, colas, you get laughed at if you asked about a cola. It wasn't there. I went and saw Miss Abigail, and she was able to go back as far as fiscal year 12-13. We got a 1% then. The next following 2 years, 0. Previous to that, like I said, they were maybe 1% or 0. Okay. Since Frank's been here, he's been using the CPI, and we've been getting colas exactly in line with the CPI. This year, like he says, anomaly. Councilmember Klink, you said the city's a family. Manager Lucchino has mentioned it numerous times that the city's a family. Now it's time to take care of the family. Anything less than the 6.9% is actually a pay cut for us, because we're paying more at the pump, we're paying more at the grocery store, we're paying more across the board. So those are my comments. One other thing, I'm sorry. The proposed 5%, 1.9, that's still a 1.9% cut, because we're going to get 1.9 one time, which is a few $100s for most of us. Which is, I'll take a few $100s, but that 1.9 is going to be a pay cut overall compared to the CPI. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Bring it back to the council.
Well, my comment is, obviously, I've been on here a while with these COLAs, and sometimes it just wasn't possible because of the way budget amounts were. They weren't, revenues were pretty flat. But the way things are going right now, in my opinion, between the TOT is doing well, property taxes are going to go up, and we got some new businesses coming. So, this is an anomaly. If someone looked at this on paper, and because the last few years we only gave 0.7, 2.7, 1.7, and all of a sudden now it's 6.9, it might look like, oh, wow, they're really giving them crazy money. But if you got to look at it as far as it's been inching up, but this year is high. So I'm okay with the 6.9 actually for the whole COLA raise.
I really kind of, like what he said about everything is going up. I mean, and I'm at work fighting for my people for raises because I think that they rate it, and I think that it's a testament to the employees of the city that not more of them are here because they're happy. To me, that says they're happy. But at the same time, I do agree that we need to reward them. And so I'm good with the 6.9.
Mr. Thompson did a great job up there, and my thing of is this 1.9% equates to 49,000. How much do each one get an individual about on average? You know?
Well, it just
Or
depends.
do you know?
Yeah.
For me personally, it's about $1,200.
So it depends on your wage, your annual wage.
So that money minus the taxes that's going to be taken out of it is going to be probably close to $100, maybe, which I think they should get the 6.9, and they can use all the money as it goes on, because like Mayor Pro Tem Wright said, the prices, and like Mr. Thompson, prices are going up like crazy, and it doesn't look like it's stopping. So I too would go for that 6.9.
Councilmember Bilderant.
From the budget. Six point.
Let me give you the Reader's
We'll
Digest
do it
version.
this way right here.
No, we did this morning.
Yeah.
So, whatever the employees are paying for the buck for them, you know, as we talked this morning, lower on that, more money up front, that big check, that's not really a big check because it comes down with the taxes, or they get the bigger percentage, whatever we discussed, whatever we're good with, I'm good with. Whatever they want, really. It's not what I want, but that's where I'm at.
Okay.
And I overheard some of it when I walked in, so I'm kind of caught up.
I think I understand what you just said. Anyway, the 6.9, I was kind of taken aback with that number, to be quite honest. I have to be honest. And I was leaning more towards maybe about 4 or 5 on COLA, because I may not have a degree in accounting, but I believe that also in the times of plenty, you still have to prepare for those times of lack. And that's where it's coming from. It is not attached to not wanting to give employees what they rightfully deserve. And I agree with you that we do have some of the hardest working employees here in this city, which are the city employees. But like I said, when there's a surplus of money in my household, we always put something back in savings or whatever we do. We don't spend it up because it's there. My children would spend it all up when they got their allowances. But we're talking adults here, and we're talking inflation and gas prices are climbing back up again. Food prices are back up again. Rent, mortgage, things of that nature. I would say that if I would lean towards the 6.9 and not break off any of it for anything else, give them the total 6.9.
I would like to remind the public and us that this COLA does not reflect on the city manager's salary. This is not an automatic raise for the city manager.
I think that they understand it. I think that many have sat in these chambers and understand the whole budget process and understand the COLA process, and we know that the city manager, this has nothing to do with him.
You know, a lot of people
Yeah,
don't know that.
you'll be surprised.
I was more referring to the people in the public, ma'am.
Yeah.
That's what I was referring to.
So,
I would like to add that for, the budget committee, direction, we asked employees this morning in our meeting, and they all agreed that they wanted the 6.9% rather than breaking it down into
yes.
With that being said, can I make a motion that we accept
Yes,
the
you may.
6.9% and the transfers?
Yeah, but only do one of the transfers because Councilmember Mitz has to recuse himself from the second.
Gotcha.
And actually, you don't even make a motion, because again, this is budget
Oh, that's
review, right? So I've heard you loud and clear as far as the COLA, so we just got to approve the transfers. Any other comments as it relates to the other parts of the budget? Obviously, wages is the biggest portion of the budget. One other thing too, that was brought up, and I just wanted to bring that forward, talking about ARPA, one of the things that staff has allocated the money for is the light poles in Lucky Park. But that is discretionary, right? And staff has done that from a safety perspective. and we're working through the process. The wood light poles in Lucky Park are old, and we need to replace those. Because again, water, we got a lot of water in Lucky Park, water in our grass, and water is corrosive to wood and other things. And it's deteriorating, and we believe that for safety purposes, we want to replace it. But that's discretionary, and I just wanted to point that out, and their staff is recommending that, but I just wanted to point that out. That could be allocated somewhere else.
Since you brought it up, we can discuss a little bit of it.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely. That's within the budget, yeah.
Will that pay for all of the wood
Well,
poles, or
yeah,
how many, or what?
So we have, so it's a placeholder in the budget. Again, we're in weird times with cost. So we haven't bid that out lately, so that's an older bid. So we're holding that as a placeholder. So assuming the budget gets adopted with that in there, then we'll go out to bid and see. So we'll end up bringing that back to see where we're at. Ideally speaking, that greater number is for cement poles and not wood poles, steel poles instead of wood poles, because they'll last longer. Wood poles are cheaper, but they just won't, have that length of time that's out there. So it still will come forward, and we're hoping, depending on where we're at in this, climate, that that is enough resources to replace them. At least, if not, replace all the ones that are critical.
I have a question. The flood channels and where all the trash and debris is, isn't there something, did you check on whether we can do something about that to not allow people to camp out?
Yeah, so good question, and thank you for bringing it up. We haven't talked, and I haven't talked yet to flood control about that. As the council is aware, you saw the pictures and you probably heard it from constituents. We had a lot of people camping and a lot of debris. Back to staff again. That is a county San Bernardino flood control responsibility. It's not a city responsibility. It's a county flood control responsibility. However, under Adobe Road here, it's our responsibility. Yeah, so I look in my direction there. Under Adobe Road is our responsibility. So they couldn't get heavy equipment in there to kind of get all the debris and stuff and not very nice stuff out from under there. So our staff, Public Works, Parks, some recreational staff, had to go in there physically and remove some of that stuff so county flood can take it away. So again, very appreciative for staff for doing that. I haven't followed up with county flood yet to see what they can do to protect that area from people not going in there again, because they're going to go in there again if it's. Yes, they are. So and I already had this in my council member comments, but since it was brought up, the homeless related issue is becoming a greater and greater issue. Project Phoenix being in the downtown area, we're just starting to see a lot more homeless down there. We're trying to react to areas to protect it. We got our security cameras down there, but it's nighttime is it's becoming a magnet, and so staff is trying to figure out how to. So just like the flood control channel, and we're seeing that population move from one location to another location. And Project Phoenix. Local businessmen in our downtown area kind of thanked us for building Project Phoenix because they left his property and came to our property. So that's what ends up happening. They go from one place to another. But Madam Mayor, I will follow up and I'll report back to the council.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question in reference to the reserves and the limit. Do we need to discuss that, or?
You can, yeah. So just as a recap real quick, the dollars haven't changed. So as we grow and expenditures increase, that's the denominator. So 5.2 million is the numerator. So when that denominator grows, that percentage decreases. So you have one of two options: to change the policy or to add money to the reserves to keep the percentage right.
So our percentages drop.
Correct.
So if we moved it to 50%, then that's a pretty good number. We'd be able to meet those goals.
Yeah, and if you recall, the consultant that we had recommended 50 to 55. Then Councilmember Cole recommended to go to 60, 65. But the recommendation was 50, 55. Now, Just keep in mind, though, as we continue to grow, that percentage is gonna, if we don't touch the reserve, that percentage will decrease as we grow. So it's something we gotta grapple with, and maybe even from a budget perspective. And we wanna put our money to work, right? I mean, the public, we have tax dollars, and you have responsibility to the taxpayers to put it to work, and we have. But also, another one of your options could be is to depositing more money each year into your reserves, so it continues to increase. So as our revenues increase, the percentage stays the same. So again, that's one of those policy discussions I think we need to kind of come up with. Either put more money in there or adjust percentage.
So do we need to make it a future agenda item, or?
You don't, I think staff has direction on it. We'll bring it back, because that's something we need to clarify.
We'll come back with COAs and how to make, what we need to do to certain percentages?
Yes.
Okay.
And one other thing too, from a budget perspective, as mentioned, that $100,000, again, staff doesn't have, we're earmarking that money, but we don't have a program. So if council, maybe wants to come up with a committee, and maybe myself and maybe 2 members kind of try to think of, ways to put that money to work, assuming that it gets approved. We have ideas, but maybe you have some ideas that we could put that $100,000 to work to help the situation.
I'll be on that committee.
What about that, equity committee we doing?
Yeah, so that's moving forward. I need your council members' appointees for that. I know Councilmember Wright, you sent me your appointee, but yeah, I need each of your members.
No, I mean them coming up with it. Wouldn't that be a part of them coming up with what to do with the 100?
You could, however, the problem with that is that that committee will, with the idea for that is it will be by the end of the calendar year, it will be complete. So you may want to put that $100,000 to work sooner than that.
Okay, gotcha.
So.
Anything else? Okay. And we're not voting on anything, correct?
Just those 2 transfers.
And one we leave off.
Yes, and Danny, Councilmember Mitz will have to recuse.
Recuse. Okay. So then I make a motion that we approve the recommended transfers of $105,000 from general fund to the capital projects fund for the Amboy bike path, and $66,422 from general fund to the sewer fund for site planning costs at Project Phoenix.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Mintz,
Aye, but I abstained from number 2, the $66,422 for Project Phoenix.
Councilmember Klink,
Aye.
Councilmember Buildering,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Wright,
Aye.
Mayor Ogilvy.
Aye.
Approved 5-0.
All righty. Future council initiative items. Discuss any items that you want to add?
And if staff could give one update, I know was brought up the last couple meetings, shopping carts. So I think we have a consultant that's kind of working on that. So that'll be presented soon.
Okay, because they're out there again.
I saw them today.
I don't know why. But, oh well.
Okay.
Okay.
Public comments. This is the time for the public to address the city council on issues within the jurisdiction of the city council that are not on this agenda. All comments are to be directed to the city council and shall not consist of any personal attacks. Members of the public are expected to maintain a professional, courteous decorum during their comments. There is a time limitation of 3 minutes per person. If you haven't already done so, please fill out your name and address slips on a slip and give to the city clerk. The city council is prohibited by state law from taking action or discussing items not included on the printed agenda. Public comments on specific agenda items will be deferred until consideration of the items on the agenda. Nothing from the public. All righty.
I have a question. There was an item 13 on the agenda, the second reading of the amendments of the development code. I have a comment on that. Is that going to be postponed?
Yeah, so that was on the consent calendar, so the council already approved that,
Right.
so it is passed. But, you know, again, it's, I can talk to you after the meeting if you have any questions.
All right, then we'll do the city manager update.
I'll be quick. So, so one thing I just wanted to kind of point out, I know this was brought up by the council. Let me pull up our website here. So we've updated this. Oops. So there's two areas for citizen complaints. Let me see. So development. Yeah. So development. So we have the vacation home rental complaints, and I know one of the comments from the council during that VHR discussion is it needed to be broad. So we have it in two areas. So under vacation home rentals, we have this tab where it describes vacation home rental complaints and how do you proceed with that. But also under code enforcement, it has just regular code enforcement complaints, and we're adding some language here. So for the weekend service, so it's not just VHR complaints, and that was the point of the council in your comments. So we're updating this in these two sections here. So so yes, if you have a VHR complaint, there's instructions. But if you have a regular complaint too, and even it's the weekend, you call that service, right? So we're kind of clarifying that on our website, adding some language there. Our wastewater feasibility report is complete. Part of the process with development of our sewer project is the feasibility study. NV5 has, so all again, grant funded by the state water. The feasibility is complete, which is with State Water and Regional Water Quality Control Board. A step in the process to check off, to look at, that it is feasible. All indications are that it is feasible, but it's a process in the, I don't want to be redundant, a process in the process, but it's a step in the process. Homeless, I mentioned, and pool and channel trail will be my final two comments. So the pool was mentioned, I think, last council meeting. Was supposed to have been, the bid opening should have been today. We postponed it 2 days. So Thursday, the bid opening will happen for the pool, so that's coming this week. Again, keep your fingers crossed as it relates to this environment that we're in, but that bid opening will be Thursday. Next week, I think, 1 week later, we delayed it 1 week, the channel trail, the bike path from Split Rock to Adobe Road, those bids will be coming in next week as well. Again, keep your fingers crossed as it relates to this environment that we're in. So that's all my updates.
Thank you. All righty. I'm getting ready to adjourn the meeting, but I would like to say this. I want to close this meeting in honor of all the families who have lost loved ones to senseless violence.